I grew up in a small town, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I grew up in a small town, and I mean, we did not miss school, right? Unless, I don't know. Like, I think my mom embarrassingly gave me Tylenol and sent me to school. Right? What I've noticed is it seems like our parents are being careful and cautious and keeping them home.
Yeah.
But to the detriment of way more days than, you know what I mean, is necessary.
I know some of the families that we work with that may not be part of their cultural norm, or they may not understand the importance of attendance and how it plays a role in their kids' academics. So the education around that is really important to help shift that mindset.
Yeah. Research suggests that children who are chronically absent for multiple years between preschool and second grade are much less likely to read at grade level by the third grade. Chronic absenteeism has also been shown to make students 4 times more likely to not graduate from high school. According to the U.S. Department of Education, 20 states in the U.S. reported that more than 30% of their students missed at least 3 weeks of school in 2022-23. It's an important issue with significant consequences, and it can be particularly pervasive as students move through educational transitions in their school careers. I'm Chris Posey, Director of Marketing Communications at Family and Children's Services and your podcast host. And today, I'll be speaking with Stephanie Andrews, Executive Director of Student and Family Support Services at Tulsa Public Schools, and Faith Crittenden, Vice President of School-Based Programs at FCS, about the causes, consequences, and solutions to chronic absenteeism here on OK State of Mind, a podcast of Family and Children's Services. And with that, let's get started with our conversation today. But before we do, will you two take a moment just to introduce yourselves and let us know what you do, where you're at, that sort of thing?
My name is Stephanie Andrews. I'm the Executive Director of the Office of Student and Family Support Services for Tulsa Public Schools. I always tell everybody we have the best office of all the offices in TPS, but so we are an office that does exactly what you would think. We support students' health, wellness, behavioral needs, McKinney-Vento students, discipline, parent concerns. You just keep thinking of all the things. That's us. Yep.
All right. Well, thanks.
Yeah. And I'm Faith Crittenden. I'm the Vice President of Children's Mental Health here at Family and Children's. And we have multiple programs, and one of our programs is school-based, which we get to work with Stephanie and her team quite often.
All right. Sounds good. Well, we've already talked in the introduction a little bit about this important time of year where kids are heading back to school right now. Mm-hmm. And a lot of kids are going through a lot of transitions right now. And transitions can be exciting, and they can also be stressful. And that stress can sometimes cause people to decide, I'm not going to make it to class today. And so that's really what we're going to be focusing on today is the idea of chronic absenteeism with regard to school transitions. But before we get started, let's just lay a little groundwork. Let's lay a foundation. What is chronic absenteeism? What does that mean?
Oh, there's fancy definitions, I think. But for me, I always think about it like this. So I always call it sort of the 10% rule.
Okay.
Which means let's pretend we've been in school 180 days. If you've missed more than 10%, you are considered chronically absent. And that's why I said it's kind of tricky, right?
Yeah.
But that's really what we're talking about.
All right. And so with chronic absenteeism, there's the obvious impact, academic impact, because students are literally missing class. They're missing, things that they need to be learned. But I suspect chronic absenteeism goes beyond just, I missed note-taking or I missed a test or whatever. What are some other effects of chronic absenteeism?
I think that I would love to talk about the first one, though, as well.
Okay.
And the fact that, especially when you get into high school in Oklahoma, you actually have to attend class, like a minimum amount of time to get a grade. So I want to say that. I think people forget. It's really important.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about absences, it doesn't matter if they're excused or unexcused. That all kind of gets wrapped up into that.
That's a great point.
Right? So I wanted to mention that. But then on the other end, I do want to say that, and Faith, you can weigh in, but one of the things that we notice a lot is just like us, when you miss one day of work, it makes it easier. You know what I mean? It kind of makes it harder to go back. You keep missing work and work and work. The same thing is true with school. So when you start to be absent more and more, you do feel disconnected from that school community. You feel disconnected from your friends, right? You're so behind on your academics that it's hard to get caught up. So it definitely has a ripple effect when it comes to not just your grades, but in like your social relationships, which can then trigger things like anxiety. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Trigger those other things.
Yeah. Faith, you run into this at all, the anxiety and the disconnect?
Absolutely. And I think we do. I think it's great that Stephanie called out it doesn't matter if it's excused or unexcused. There's a misnomer around that. Parents think that missing school for a doctor's appointment is an excused absence, and really an absence is an absence. And so kids really, if they have a lot of, when they're chronically gone, there's developmental milestones that they miss academically and socially and emotionally. And all of that combined can create a ball of anxiety, which just kind of persists and, becomes a greater issue if we don't take care of it beforehand. And I know we see, and I think Stephanie can kind of speak to this, is that if between kindergarten and second grade, if we're not kind of addressing those issues by the time kids get to third grade, it can really become a really significant issue that also has a larger trajectory for when they're going to graduate high school. So it's a big deal. We need to head it off early on in their school life versus, waiting till they're in high school or older to kind of address.
Yeah. And not to oversimplify, but I assume the more students miss, the tougher it is to turn the bus around, to get back on track.
Oh, there's a big correlation. And like you said, I think it's really important. I used to be, a long time ago, a kindergarten teacher. And so I imagine, right, and I even remember being a kindergarten teacher, it's easy to think it's only kindergarten. It is literally only pre-K, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's okay if we take off and go to the zoo or whatever, right? But it's really important. I don't think they realize how much content is covered when we miss, but not just that. It is that routine, right? It's that routine of being there and knowing what to do. So it also affects like our behavior, right? Like, so if you've been out of school a long time and you're only 4 and you come back, there's a big adjustment again every time, which is stressful for the kid and the family.
Yeah. I used to teach high school many years ago, and I remember running into similar situations on the other end of the spectrum. Even if I had students that I knew were academically responsible, but if they missed so many classes, there was just a disconnect between me and that student. I mean, I just didn't interact with them as much. And, it's just unfortunate because I felt like that was just, that's not only an important part of their lives, but it was an important part of my life too, as their teacher. So I liked having them there and having them there consistently. Why are people chronically absent? What are some of the causes of it?
Oh, there's so many. And I mean, it can be anything from a parent illness. A lot of times I think that people think it's actually a student illness, but a lot of the time is a parent illness, right? They're having difficulty getting their student to school because of their own, right, like personal parent needs. A lot of the time, though, I would say a big barrier is transportation. And you're like, how can that be? We have school buses, right? There's specific parameters around like where the bus can pick up and all of those things. And one of the challenging things in Tulsa is just finding transportation, right? In Tulsa, it is often challenging for our families. So I think that's a big one. Another one is students that are experiencing like a displacement from their homes or homelessness. And so not having a home, can you imagine? Like is a huge barrier to attendance, right? Those are some of our most vulnerable students. Their parents are experiencing a pretty, difficult time in their life. They don't have a house, and getting to school often is not, right, like starts to fall off that list.
Yeah. What happens as far as the transportation situation goes with unhoused kids? How is that addressed? How is that handled?
And if they will reach out to our office, if parents and families, we really do have a plan and we can help you. We have transportation available for those very people, but I think parents don't know. That's what I was going to say, right? I think they don't realize that we're going to hop in and help them if we know about it. And what often happens is we just don't know, right? Like we don't know why they're absent, right? And we don't know what's going on. And we actually have lots of availability for transportation for students who are experiencing displacement and homelessness.
I suspect there's a little bit of hesitation there on the part of students who are in that situation. They may not want to offer that piece of information readily.
Yeah.
Well, and I think some of the schools get real creative about how to get kids to the buildings. Like I know there's been the walking school bus where parents get together and they walk together to school. So there are always, sometimes if parents just reach out and ask, there are creative ways schools will engage in to get kids in schools because they want them there.
Yeah. When I was in junior high, I walked to school, and it was a long time ago, and I did have to walk uphill both ways in the snow. But I mean, I know back then there were environmental conditions. Here in Oklahoma, I mean, it gets pretty cold in the wintertime. And you mentioned the
walking school bus.
Yeah. I'm guessing walkers are some that do face particular challenges in especially making it to first hour.
Your high school, the high school mind on you. But I would say that our attendance, you are correct when you're measuring attendance. That is one of the time periods where we do have difficulty, especially around inclement weather. We have pretty low numbers when it's below, like very, very cold. And as you know, Oklahoma is fun. It's all the weather or raining really hard or anything like that. So those affect our attendance as well.
Yeah. Are we still experiencing attendance issues from COVID?
Ooh, I would say.
Like, has the perception changed of attendance since COVID? Because during that time, it was quite a bit different. It was very non-standard. And I'm wondering if there are lingering effects from that.
I don't know if I could say there's like research, that I could say, but anecdotally, I think that in talking to schools or us just being a part of schools, we do often hear from parents. They're like, well, we can just do the work virtually or we can just get the work online.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that is new that wasn't there before COVID, right? That, well, he can he or she can access the work. Well, yes, but that's a lot of content, right? Like that's a lot to just understand.
Yeah.
The farther we're getting away, I think parents are recognizing the need for, we need someone to teach them the materials before they can just do it at home.
That's right.
But I would say that definitely that has played into this idea that if they can just do the work online, then they're not really missing school. So I would say that is a barrier that is post-COVID. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, my daughter was taking Spanish in high school during COVID, and I always thought how tough that must be to learn a foreign language virtually. I mean, I know that any class there were challenges, but I really felt for her with her Spanish class because it would be really tough to do that. As you're talking about this, I think about, and I'm not going to ask anybody's age. I already told you I'm really old. And as you were talking about that, it made me think about the way perceptions of attendance and absenteeism have changed over the years. You feel like there's a big difference between people who are students now and their parents who would be like maybe us?
I grew up in a small town, right? I grew up in a small town, and I mean, we did not miss school, right? Unless I don't know, I think my mom embarrassingly gave me Tylenol and sent me to school, right? I think, and my daughters are actually both 20 and 24. And they have some horrible stories about me doing the same thing because I've always worked in schools. And I was like, listen, I have to teach today. I have to go to school. You're going to school. We're all going to school. I don't know. Here's your Tylenol. So I do think, though, that after COVID, I do think parents are actually, I know this sounds terrible, so that means that I contaminated people probably with my children and illnesses, right? I do think parents are a lot more cautious. What I think has happened is what I'm seeing is that parents are when a child is maybe not running a fever, but just is coughing and a runny nose. When we were younger, we would have had to go to school. And what I've noticed is it seems like our parents are being careful and cautious and keeping them home. Yeah. But to the detriment of way more days than, you know what I mean,
Yeah,
is
yeah.
necessary. I also think that, like, I don't know why, but I mean, yeah, I was afraid, like, of my mother
Me too.
not going to school. So I'm not sure, you know what I mean? I can't really speak to that. I do know that parents keep their children home a lot more for what I would consider things like we actually have on our Tulsa Public Schools website. This is when you should keep your kid home.
Oh, that's cool.
And if you go and it says like temperature above this, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it doesn't say all, like, we live in Oklahoma, like people are going to
Have
have,
allergies.
Yeah.
right? Sniffles and stuff. So,
Yeah, I think, but to your point, like the culture of the family and what school means, like the meaningfulness, I think plays a big role in how parents push kids to be at school. Because I know school's important. I work in schools. I was a kindergarten teacher's assistant at Marshall Elementary. I know that attendance is important. So I'm like, that's your job, you're going. But I know some of the families that we work with, that may not be part of their cultural norm, or they may not understand the importance of attendance and how it plays a role in their kids' academics. So the education around that is really important to help shift that mindset.
Yeah. And ironically, I think when they return to school, there is another set of problems, this re-entry back into the school. And Faith, maybe you all see this in your program, especially if someone had been absent, 10 days in a row, 15 days in a row. So we're talking weeks at a time. That day of return has got to be a little uncomfortable. Do you have anything to say about that? Are you seeing that sort of thing out there?
Sure. I know with the families that we're working with, I mean, we are really encouraging them to go to meet the teacher, to go to back to school, to go to the resource fairs that, the schools are holding, to get to meet the teacher and talk with the teacher, because the school is the first large, system that families interface with. So what can we do to make that a positive experience, that they're there to help and support you, to foster your kids' academic growth and success? And how do we get you connected and invested in your school so that it's something that you find safe and helpful and connected? Because I think that when, like Stephanie, when you were saying that families feel disconnected, then they, that inserts information about that can cause anxiety and can cause some negative narration around their school experience. So what can we do to help them? So we really encourage families, like, get out there. We'll meet you at the school. Like, let's walk around and see your classroom, meet your teacher. Here's where the nurse's office is. Here's the closest bathroom. Here's where the cafeteria is. And getting them used to some of the rules that may be going on at each site. Like, I know a big rule this year is the state law that passed around cell phones. So how are we prepping our kids who have had, phones in their face all summer to go, from bell to bell, you're not allowed to have that cell phone. And it's not that the school is being, trying to revoke your ability to connect with your peers or get on whatever platform. They're really obligated to do that. So let's figure out what the rules are going into this year for your classroom, for the school, for the district, so we can support and help foster that healthy transition.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that another reason for a long-term absence besides summer is often students who have had discipline issues, right? So students who are suspended.
Yeah.
And so you can imagine that also sort of compounds attendance issues in that they're often really nervous because they were clearly, right? Like, there was a reason that there was a suspension, right? So our office has to intervene. We have a lot of students who their suspension is over. They could have gone back to school.
Yeah.
And they're having difficulty with that transition. So even over the summer, our office reaches out to students who maybe were what I would consider, like you said, like more than 10 days suspended at the end of the year, reaching out saying, hey, why don't you just come in and let's talk about what happened. Let's make sure you're going to go to the right school next year. Let's, start off on the right foot. So that's just another reason I was thinking when we think of this reentry. And of course, back to school time is anxious for everyone, right? Like, there's been this huge break, right? Even teachers, I told them that secretly I'm glad I'm a 12-month employee because I don't have the before the first day back jitters that happens, right? Like even for educators. Yeah. So I think that that's one of the things to just think about, is that there's this whole reentry is challenging, like at the beginning of the school year for a lot of our students, a lot of our teachers and parents. Getting back into that routine. Yeah. It's really is a tricky routine to get back into.
Yeah. I think that what you were talking about with people being out and then if they've been suspended or whatever, and then coming back in, and the compounded effects that you're referring to have got to be tough to deal with in going back. I'm curious if there are things that can happen at home to help our students connect to their schools and also to help the parents feel connected. I know with my kids, sometimes I'm like, now what is happening this week? What are some things that we can do to improve that connectedness outside of the school building?
Absolutely. And I know because I'm a parent of a kiddo going into high school and an elementary student. And I know one of the things that's super helpful is getting connected to the pages that the schools have. So I can go in and look at calendars and important dates and get familiar with that. It also has the handbook in it. So I can read over the handbook and see, has a policy changed? Has a procedure changed? Like I know one big shift was uniforms. We did uniforms last year.
Mm-hmm.
They went to no uniforms. Okay, well, that's a big thing. And that's something that I need to talk to, I talked to my 10-year-old about, who was stoked to not have to do uniforms.
Mm-hmm.
And he could go pick out, regular clothes for school that were appropriate. So, we had to have those kind of conversations, getting messages from the school as a parent saying, here's when Meet the Teacher is. So talking to my kiddo about, we're going to get to go see who your teacher is, and we're going to walk the building, and we're going to practice, waking up on time.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to talk about what our morning routine is going to look like as we transition back into school.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe driving past the school building to get back in the flow of that.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah. So let's get back on, just a biological rhythm
Mm-hmm.
for that. And what are the upcoming activities? He participated in bike club. He was in chess club. So what are some groups, some different club things that are going on at the site to get your kids invested in? Because I think that also creates a level of connectivity
Mm-hmm.
with kids, not only, who their teacher is and their friends that are coming back, but also what are you doing outside of, your traditional school day to participate in those activities that are meaningful as well.
Yeah, that's a good idea. The biological aspect is an interesting one. This is going to have a big impact on their sleep and their eating, just as you mentioned. And I wonder if we just kind of take those things for granted. We're like, it'll be all right. We're all going to go to bed. We're all going to eat dinner or whatever. But yeah, when your schedule has been different for 3 months, your body has made that adjustment and you've got to make that shift. Are there things that parents can do proactively throughout the year to where they can maintain a connection with the teacher so that if problems do begin to rear their heads, then maybe they can be attacked before they even become a significant problem?
For us, we have apps, and it's so different. I was just as you brought this up, I got to thinking, no wonder my mom had to come to school all the time because they didn't have this stuff, right? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
But wait a second. So we have talking points for parents that they can sign up. It's an app for their phone. You can text just back and forth. It actually even offers translation services on it. So if you don't speak our it does all of that for you, which is pretty awesome. We have our Power School, which is where all the student information is housed. Parents receive emails, the email you give us when you sign up in Tulsa Public Schools. You'll start getting automatic emails like your student was absent.
Yeah.
They are not passing their classes, right? You get automatic updates, all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And this year we've adopted, we have actually sort of a new enrollment system. It's called School Mint. I keep saying, I've made up the name. I've called it other things, for 2 days. I'm like, that thing? No, it's actually called School Mint. So every parent's having to re-enroll. And I would say, one of the important things is just making sure we've updated information for you, not just for us to call you about attendance, but for us to call you about a medical, a health reason is really important. Obviously, email, right? So there's a lot of ways that you can get in contact with teachers that they will respond to you and reply to you, compared to when I was just thinking about my mom, she just showed up, right?
Yeah.
There just used to be the show up at school thing. So there is actually quite a few venues for information to be given to parents.
And these days, students or parents can actually watch their students progress online through, platforms that are
Yeah,
given
live and in
provide
real
us.
time, you get
Yep.
updates.
For better or worse, you can see it. Can you tell us a little bit about the Attend to Win program at TPS?
So, and you guys have been a big part
Yeah.
of Attend to Win,
Yeah.
right? So, last year, our superintendent, Dr. Johnson, really just wanted to launch. It's really just a positive information sort of campaign related to these are the positive benefits to coming to school, right? Like these are the positive outcomes. So it's really just sort of launched last year, making sure that all of us are invested in this together. And of course, it sort of just continues for us to be able to like really let parents know, and kind of like what you said, I don't know if you know, just missing 2 days a month, right? Which doesn't seem like that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Like I said, by the time you get to the end of the year, you're actually chronically absent.
Oh, wow.
And we have to like submit paperwork. You know what I mean? Like this is like a chronic absenteeism problem. So I think that was really like trying to get in front of that for parents to know that. And what are the ways, like, what do you need from us? Like our office, that's my favorite title, Student and Family Support Services, right? What barriers do you have that you need help with?
Yeah.
Like that's our responsibility to help you with them. If you ask, like I said, we have social workers, we have nurses, we have counselors, we have all kinds of people. Even if it comes to the fact that maybe for whatever reason you're at a school far away, you've had to move, well, let us help you get to a school closer if that's the issue, right? A lot of supports. And then we have if it happens to be, like mental health challenge for you or your family, we have over 38 mental health partners in Tulsa Public Schools. Of course, Family and Children's Services, we even have more, right? Like there's like so many opportunities for us to support you. I would say that that's the thing I would say that I would encourage parents and families to really to check out our website. People answer the phone all the time for many reasons so that we can like help close those barriers. Because I'm not sure. I think that sometimes you maybe mentioned it earlier. There might be a little bit of nervousness or stigma around like notifying school staff around some sort of major change. And hopefully they would recognize that if they notified like district folks, like we're sort of removed from that. We can still push in and help support that.
Speaking of the barriers, what are a couple of the barriers that you hear most often and how do you respond to them? What are just two of the biggest ones you all are dealing with and that you have a path for success for?
Yeah, I mean, one of them is really transportation, right?
Okay.
If you miss the bus, you miss the bus,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think that's something that if that becomes a chronic problem, I can tell you that my husband works at, one of our high schools. And if that's the thing, they're always missing the bus, then he's like, literally, then you need to let us know. Like, we're going to figure that out. We're going to talk to transportation. Do we need to run a double route? If you all live in the same area, like, what do we need to do to be able to help you know that? But that does seem to be a very big barrier is like, we missed the bus and our parent already went to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
That has been,
for you all too, and like with the work you've been doing.
Yeah. And so some examples of that would be like we had a kiddo who was afraid to stand at the bus stop by herself because she didn't know her peers and she didn't know if it was safe. So we had one of our care coordinators go and stand at the bus stop with her like a handful of times until she got comfortable. And then she was showing up for the bus on her own. Or kids that don't have an alarm system to get them up and out the door because maybe their parent has to be at work before they have to be up and ready for the bus. So is it just an alarm clock? Is it a phone call? Like, what is it? Can grandma call you at this point to wake you up? How can we get you to the bus? Or, we've had issues with stray dogs that kids, don't feel safe hanging out in front of the bus. Well, we can call the city and say, there's stray dogs hanging out at the bus stop when the kids are there, and the city will come help. As long as we're having those conversations, we can usually come up with creative solutions. And it takes a village. Like the schools can only do so much. We can only do so much. But together, I think we can do so much more.
So it sounds from both of you, what I'm hearing is communicate. And I can imagine it'd be really tough for younger kids, in high school, you miss the bus and you might have a friend who drives and can maybe, pick you up on their way or something like that. But for little kids, I bet that really is a a tough situation to deal with. Any community resources out there that you all are aware of that, are either set up to support student attendance or maybe they indirectly support student attendance? Any other resources out there in the community that you would point people to?
Go ahead. I mean,
Yeah,
so
well,
many.
There are so many, and I think there's a lot of partnerships that TPS in particular engages with that, want to help families, get to school and participate. I think the clubs that come in, there's also like every school has like a partner that they partner with, a company. I mean, there's lots of avenues for support and resources. So again, it's just, communicating what a need is and seeing what we can come up with.
And I would say, if I could encourage parents that maybe you did tell someone and maybe it was like you didn't receive the answer you wanted, but Tulsa Public, right? I would encourage you to keep asking, or you know what I mean, reach out, because it could be a very busy day when they said something like, I was not able to get here because of this reason, and you didn't really get anything out of it. And I would say, like, don't give up. Because there are other layers, right, for us to be able to help you, and would love to help you. And I think that sometimes maybe a student, like especially a high school kid, I was thinking in particular, might get discouraged. They mentioned this one time that, well, I missed a bus, I don't have anybody to bring me, but nobody like hopped in to help them.
Yeah.
So that's not because they didn't want to, right? Like there could be a million things going on. So I would just encourage, like, keep asking. We actually do have supports in place. And like you said, we have partnerships with many of our outside organizations who keep, like, our youth serving organizations that support students after school. And then when you think about the opportunities for our young people to be in extracurriculars, like we do have like plans in place to get you places if we just, like you said, if we know about it, we just have to know about it.
Yeah. All right. What have we not talked about today that you feel is important to discuss when we're talking about chronic absenteeism and student transitions and things like that? Is there anything that we haven't touched on yet?
Well, I would say Faith brought it up, so I'll say it. Please come to school, even though we have a bell-to-bell, cell phone policy, and is a state law. I always tell everybody, like, we are not in the business of wanting there to be negative interactions with our students all day. So I want to say that for sure. But yes, you have to put yourself, like, you can't have your cell phone out, right? You really can't.
You really can't.
You really can't. So I want to communicate that, but that doesn't mean that we don't want you at school. And we want you to not feel nervous and stressed out. And parents, we want you to know that you can call our schools and that you can reach your student. And does that make sense? So not that very long ago, I know I'm old, but my oldest daughter, most definitely, she's 24. Their phones were not out at school, and she's 20. It wasn't that. That's what I'm trying to say. It wasn't that long ago. My 20-year-old definitely was not allowed to have her cell phone at all until like 10th or 11th grade, and so she's not that far out of high school. So really, what I keep telling everybody is that in like our high schools, the only difference is that really you can't have it out in the hallways, right? Like because they weren't supposed to have it out in class. So moms, if you were texting your kids and they were in class, you weren't supposed to. Because they weren't supposed to be on. You guys weren't supposed to be texting anyways.
So it's something important for the parents to keep in mind too.
Because I'm that mom, right? So I want you to know, right? Like they're in college and I have to be careful. I'm like, I Life 360 them to make sure that I'm like, oh wait, they're in this big building. So I should not be texting them right now. But no, honestly, that is the only difference. And we have, like I said, like opportunities for you to, I know it sounds crazy, talking points. You can message the school. You need to change plans for pickup or drop off or any of those things. There is a way. I know there's a way to do it. So I do want to say that we are going to work with our students and like support them through this bit of a transition. Shouldn't be so big for elementary school, but I think for some of our high schools, want to say that. And then also just want to tell parents, if you didn't get the whole like sign put up in front of your house, like this is the first day of school, right? I could never get that accomplished no matter what. And then my kids didn't even want the pictures in middle and high school. And I was like, no, we're taking the picture.
That's right. Yeah.
We were doing it. And now they're in college and they send me, I'm like, oh, stop. I can't even believe you have the nerve to send me your first day of school pictures in college when I would fight with you in the front yard. But I do think that just like you said, kids need to go back to bed. So do parents. We got to go back to bed. We have to get ourselves together. we got to go to the grocery store,
Yeah.
right? Because that when we start off our days really negative, it just creates a hard day for our kids. So I like to send out a message to all the moms of the world to say, please, please, please do not stress out if you cannot make that cute little chalk sign that says first day of kindergarten.
Yes.
Because I could never get to it. Never could get to it.
And you can always recreate it.
I could like drop
who would
in
really
now,
know?
But I
Yeah.
do think that parents, going back to school is hard for parents too, and we have to adjust our
Yeah.
routine. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's what I would say.
All right. Faith, you have anything as we conclude here?
No, I think that parents need to know that the schools really are there to support them. They want their kids in the buildings. It's much easier to have them present every day and to figure out the obstacles around that, to get kids, they're consistently used to the routine, know what's predictable, know what's expected. It's just invaluable. So schools are really there to support you. We just have to have those conversations.
Yeah. And to that, I think, Stephanie, you made a great statement. You said something along the lines of, you didn't say it this way, but of making students miserable. That's
Right.
not why they're there. I mean,
It's not why they wake up every morning to go, how can I create some misery
right,
today?
Exactly. And I mean, of course, rules have to be enforced, but ultimately schools are there to support students and they're really their families too, by extension. So, and all that stuff just plays right into attendance and avoiding chronic absenteeism. I want to thank you too for being here today. It's been a real pleasure having you as guests here. And I think this is great, again, very practical information that parents can take home with them. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. If you found value in what you heard today, there are a few ways you can support and stay connected to us. First, be sure to hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening to us. Subscribing ensures you never miss an episode, and it's absolutely free. It also helps us continue bringing you quality content. Consider leaving us a review. Your reviews not only make our day, but they also help others discover the podcast and join our community. Share this episode with friends, family, and anyone who might find it interesting. Word of mouth is a powerful way to grow our podcast family, and we truly appreciate your support. We're always eager to hear your thoughts, ideas, and suggestions. Email us at communications@fcsok.org with any episode ideas or questions. We'd love to connect with you. To learn more about Family and Children's Services, visit fcsok.org. Until next time.